Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to speak about Mr. Peter Thiel and answer his contrarian question, which he posted on his book 0 to 1. 0 to 1 came around 2015. It was one of New York Times bestseller. It was a fascinating book which covered the personal truths of Mr. Peter Thiel, and I read it around the end of 2015, and I completely disagreed with the personal truths of Mr. Peter Thiel. So today I'm going to speak about my own personal truth. Before that, I will just give you a small introduction about Mr. Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is a venture capitalist and early seed investor in a lot of startups in Silicon Valley. He was a co-founder of PayPal and also an early seed investor in Facebook, and now at this point of time I think he's into life science and is on the quest of immortality. He's a crazy guy, and one of the things which we have common is he's a chess master when he was a young guy when he was a young kid, and I really grew upon, and at the end of my teenage years I started loving chess. I learned a lot about chess and I want to be a grandmaster as well. I visioned about that, even though I'm nowhere near that strength. I think I could whoop Mr. Peter Thiel's ass. I think we are very close in from ratings point of view, and that's how I came to know about Mr. Peter Thiel through chess actually. So without delving too much into that side, I will just post this contrarian question which he spoke about, and so it goes around like this: what is one of your own personal truth which everyone finds it hard to agree upon? To put it simply, what is something which you believe it's to be 100% true for yourself, but if others came to know about it, they think it's garbage, it's completely false, or they couldn't wrap their head around that topic, that they think you are an idiot for believing that. So for me, it's a very hard question to answer. It's not actually simply, it's not easy, because conventionally we are always conditioned to think truth from an objective point of view, something in the lights similar to science. But if you think about it deeply, most of the truths upon which the modern world rest its pillars are mostly subjective truths. The truths which the people who are running this world believe it to be true. The people like presidents, prime ministers, CEOs, bankers, traders, business persons, they have their own perspectives on what is right, and they strive for it, and the person who wins, the people who are winners are mostly the people who are driving this world and making it to spin. So from this, with regard to that, when I think about this contrarian question deeply, I have few personal truths with regard to learning, and I'll say it now. One is always to underestimate. So people always say that you should never underestimate or overestimate. Underestimating is something which is considered to be not farsighted. It's something which arises out of overconfidence or conceit or arrogance or something like that. But I find it really helpful with regard to learning. So for example, you want to learn something new, and you see the person who is in the top of the food chain, and you start the problem arises when you see that the idealized or the fantasized version of him, and you see the gap between you and the other person to be very far, very wide. Then it's very hard to try something new, because you already know that you are going to fail. And when you see something common between you two, when you bridge the gap, when you see when you see that you are not that different from that person who is achieving that amazing thing, or um, explicitly exhibiting perfection. Um, so when you close the gap, when you see the things which are in common, then you see that it's quite possible for you as well um, to excel and do achieve something um, which you never thought about. So for example, when I always say in my YouTube videos that if I take with regard to table tennis, if I take Ma Long or Fonsen Dong, or if I take with regard to chess, if I think that if it's Carlsen or Kasparov or Anand, I try to see the similarities between myself and them, and so I see myself in them, and I see them in myself, and through this kind of perception, I'm taking the right step. I go to the laptop. I try to figure out the things what they are doing, and I just immediately step up and I act. So most of the troubles in our life is always because we are spending too much time planning and not taking the step into the water, not acting. So action is something which is always the last when we want to do something which we like. So by underestimating, by not seeing that they are not that great compared to where you are, or if you're, even though your perception is wrong, still by closing the gap, you are becoming more confident, and you are trying that thing, and there is a good chance that you are going to succeed, or you are going to fail, or you are going to learn something about in the due process. And one of the other personal truth of mine is to always judge very fast, and this is also frowned upon by the so-called the liberal postmodernist point of view. It is to never judge the world or judge any person before knowing about them completely. And this is funny because you can never know about any person completely, even if you spend a lifetime with them. So for me, I have this opinion that I could judge a person within 5 minutes of communicating with them, 5 minutes of having them in my presence, through their non-verbal communication, through their verbal communication, and by asking questions to them. So I always have this confidence that I am able to know about them within 5 minutes, about something about them which they didn't know about themselves in their lifetime. So how I go about this is not is a very simple process. I judge very fast, and I ask questions to them. I make assumptions. And with these assumptions, I put forward a question, and I'm looking for a 50-50 percentage probability. It's either right or it's either wrong. If it's wrong, I don't really worry about that. Then I just ignore this, and I go with the opposite about something which they gave me, the information which they gave to me, and then I develop my intuition based on what they feeded me, and with that information, I start to make further assumptions, and then I narrow the truth about them in the branches of logic, through the branches of logic, and I always see that I'm quite successful with this process, and I think that people should judge always often, very fast, with least amount of information, and it's an iterative process, but at the end you are going to have some information which is much more valuable than where you started. So these are my two personal truths. Always underestimate something which you are going to learn, or underestimate your opponent, and always judge. So I hope this was interesting to you. I'm not really speaking English in the place where I live, so it's kind of hard for me to open up and think and speak the language of English. So please, my apologies for bad communication. Wish you a good day. Bye.